The alien blacksmith in the weaponry store. On the outer rim of the galaxy, where trade routes crisscross lawless voids and perilous asteroid belts, there lay a forgotten planet called Tirak 59. Its skies shimmered with two pale suns, and its vast deserts were littered with the relics of ancient wars, a graveyard of forgotten civilizations. It was on this forsaken world that a small, thriving settlement called Forge Haven existed, a place known for one thing above all, its legendary weaponry. At the heart of Forge Haven stood an unassuming, smoke-wreathed shop known simply as Iridon's Forge. The store looked like it had been pieced together from 1,000 wrecked starships. Its outer walls glimmered with reflective alien alloys, and a giant scorched sign above the entrance bore an intricate sigil resembling a hammer entwined with a serpent. But it wasn't the sign or the structure that brought travelers, mercenaries, and bounty hunters from the far reaches of the universe to this remote outpost. It was the enigmatic alien blacksmith who owned it. The blacksmith Iridon was no ordinary blacksmith. Standing over 7 feet tall, his skin gleamed like molten metal under the twin suns, shifting hues from silver to copper depending on the light. His eyes burned with a steady amber glow, and his forearms moved with mechanical precision, each one seemingly capable of handling a separate task. A thick, segmented tail coiled behind him, twitching in sync with his movements. Iridon was a helionite, a near-extinct species known for their mastery of metallurgy and their deep connection to animaflux, a rare cosmic energy that could bind itself to metal, imbuing it with sentience and power. Rumors whispered that Iridon was the last of his kind, though none dared to ask him directly. His forge was alive with activity day and night. Massive gravity-defying anvils floated midair, surrounded by glowing runes, and hammers that seemed too heavy for any creature to lift swung effortlessly in his grasp. Iridon's creations were works of art, each one uniquely tailored to its wielder. Some whispered, others sang, and a few radiated such intense energy that they required suppression fields to contain them. A mysterious arrival. One day, as Forge Haven bustled with the usual influx of off-world traders and thrill-seeking adventurers, a shadow fell across the forge's threshold. Iridon looked up from his work to see a hooded figure standing in the doorway. The stranger's presence seemed to suck the heat from the room, and even the runes on Iridon's tools dimmed slightly. The figure pulled back their hood, revealing a human face etched with countless scars and piercing green eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. "I seek the Blade of Eresh," the stranger said, their voice calm but laced with a dangerous edge. Iridon paused, his forearms freezing mid-motion. The name sent a ripple through the forge, as though the very air rebelled against its utterance. "The Blade of Eresh?" Iridon's voice was deep, resonant, and carried the weight of countless eons. "That weapon was forged in blood and cursed with despair. It should not exist." The stranger stepped closer, their boots echoing against the metal floor. "I know what it is. I know what it can do. And I also know you made it." Iridon's molten eyes narrowed. "If you know all that, then you know why it cannot be yours." The stranger's hand shot out, revealing a glowing shard of anima flux, the rarest energy in the galaxy. It pulsed with raw power, its light casting eerie shadows across the walls. "I have this," the stranger said, "and I have a reason." The blade's origin. Iridon took the shard, his clawed fingers closing around it. "The Blade of Eresh," he began, his voice low and somber, "was my greatest failure. I forged it for a warlord who sought to conquer not just planets, but souls. It was made from stygium, a metal born in the heart of a dying star, and infused with anima flux so potent it could rip the essence from its victims and bind them to its wielder's will. But the blade was too powerful, too hungry. It consumed its master and unleashed a calamity that wiped out an entire system." He looked up at the stranger, his amber eyes glowing brighter. "I destroyed it, or so I thought." The stranger nodded. "It wasn't destroyed, it was scattered. The hilt is in my possession. I need you to reforge it." Iridon growled, the sound reverberating through the forge. "Why? Do you wish to wield its cursed power?" The stranger hesitated, then pulled a small metallic sphere from their pocket. They pressed a button, and a holographic image sprang to life. A young child laughing and playing in a meadow. "My daughter," the stranger said, their voice breaking. "She was taken by the Void Reavers. The only thing they fear is the blade. With it, I can get her back." The forging Iridon stared at the hologram for a long moment before nodding. "Very well," he said. "But know this. Once reforged, the blade will not obey you. It will seek a master worthy of its power, or destroy you trying." The forging process was unlike anything the stranger had ever witnessed. Iridon summoned the shards of the blade from across the galaxy, each piece glowing with a malevolent light as it was drawn into the forge. The anima flux shard was placed at the heart of the process, its energy binding the fragments together. As Iridon worked, the forge seemed to take on a life of its own. The floating anvils hummed with ancient power, and the runes glowed so brightly they cast long shadows across the walls. The stranger watched in awe as the blade began to take shape, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Iridon held up the completed weapon. The Blade of Eresh was beautiful and terrible, its edge gleaming with a dark, iridescent sheen. The hilt pulsed with a heartbeat-like rhythm, and the air around it seemed to ripple with barely contained power. A warning Iridon handed the blade to the stranger, his molten eyes locking onto theirs. "Remember," he said, his voice heavy with warning, "this weapon is alive. Treat it with respect, or it will destroy you." The stranger nodded, their hand closing around the hilt. For a moment the blade resisted, its power flaring violently, but then it quieted, as though accepting its new master. As the stranger turned to leave, Iridon called out one last time, "When your task is done, bring it back to me. It does not belong in this galaxy." The stranger paused at the threshold, the blade humming softly at their side. "If I survive," they said, "I will." And with that, they disappeared into the endless desert, the Blade of Eresh once again carried into the stars.